Oregon and Ohio State, the two favorites in the Big Ten, according to the odds market. Who's got the better roster? We're going to figure that out today. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for a Locked On crossover edition of both Locked On Ducks and Locked On Buckeyes. I'm Spencer McLaughlin. That is Jay Stevens, and thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source, this be to stay up to date with the Ducks or Buckeyes, depending on where you're listening to the show, which today is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be next around the corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today on nissanusa.com. Our big adventure today is deciphering who's got the better roster, or is it just a wash? So what we have done individually, and we have no idea what the other has done as we record this show, is we have assigned grades to every position group, and we'll roll through and we'll keep a running tally of who's got the higher grade in our view. And I'm sure no one will debate that in the comments section, regardless of where we come down in this particular matter. Let's hop right into it, Jay, and we're going to save the quarterbacks for later because that is its whole own sort of segment there, Dylan Gabriel against Will Howard. Let's start with the only one where off the top of my head, I give the advantage to Ohio State, and that's the running backs. I like Oregon's running backs. Jordan James, Noah Whittington, 1A, 1B sort of deal. I think they're good, but Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, probably the best running back room in all of college football. So I've got Oregon at a B+. I'd probably give Ohio State an A+ in the backfield.
I will go A- on the Ohio State backfield.
Oh, okay.
I'm a very tough grader, and this is me being very generous, guys. You'll get me a lot tougher of a grader during season, after games. My grades are more harsher at that point in time. I say A-. I probably should go B+ though, because outside of those two guys, Dallin Hayden is good. They hadn't played much, and there is no depth there. So if we're just going the top two guys, my grade would be higher. Henderson's durability has always been a question for me too. So it's not just like I think I know what he can be if he plays for 12 games. He hasn't played 12 games straight. So I truly am like, what does he get if he loaned back? Well, he's not going to be that. But I'm going to go B+, not
Okay.
A-.
Okay.
Because the top two, like if it was just Judkins, good, like elite guy. Henderson can be elite, but not consistently. Hayden, good, hasn't played a lot. And outside of those three guys, nobody else in Ohio State's running back room has gotten playing time consistently. So there's a lot of question marks there. So I'm going B+ with we had a tie, B+ for the running back.
The grading system that you've employed is indeed quite tough because you typically don't see more than three guys rotate into a running back room. And Oregon's got plenty of questions at the number 3 spot. Jaden Lamar was a true freshman last year, played very, very few snaps, looked solid, but has not played a ton. Jay Harris was a D2 All-American. He comes in, maybe he's Oregon's number 3 running back. I don't think we really know at this point in time. I do think though, as much as I like Oregon's running back room, with Noah Whittington coming off an injury, I would lean the top two guys, Judkins and Henderson, over James and Whittington there. But the next group I want to bring up is one where people with a 30,000-foot view of these programs would think Ohio State against Oregon wide receivers. This is Ohio State all day, every day of the week. I just don't see that being the case, Jay. I've got an A- grade for Oregon's wide receiver room. I could be a touch low. I just need to see more from Evan Stewart, but without the usual cadre of guys on the perimeter, what is this Ohio State receiver room right now?
It's weird. It's very similar to some of the parts of the running back room. The receiving room as a whole, I'm going to go A-. And it's because of, outside of Ibuka, you really don't have a lot of guys that have gotten playing time. Last year, Carnell Tate got a little bit of playing time. Brendan Ennis less than him. But Jayden Ballard, Kojo Antwi, a lot of the older guys that are 2- and 3-year, 4-year guys haven't played much because you've had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., and others that got a lot of the playing time, which is why they're in the NFL. So I'm going A. Did I say A-?
You did say A-, yeah.
I am going A- because Ibuka, future first-round pick in the 2025 draft. Jeremiah Smith, we all believe will be great. Hasn't played yet. Cardell Tate, Brendan Ennis, we believe will be great. Haven't played consistently. Haven't played 12 games yet. That's my thing. Like, the top is great. The potential is there. They just haven't played on the field. So maybe my A- is more super projection, but that's all I got right now.
Yeah, and I think the reason that I give the edge to Oregon's receiver room is that Evan Stewart has proven something. Tez Johnson, 1,000-yard receiver. Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant. You've got a 5-star injury on Dickey, who's waiting to make a big impact. He was battling injuries in his first campaign with the Ducks. So the talent, the potential is really there for this Oregon receiver room. I think it's one of the best Oregon receiver rooms we've had in quite some time, which is saying something because they just lost the first or second round pick in Troy Franklin to the NFL, who will be the highest drafted Oregon wideout in my lifetime. Let's go to the other pass catching group, and that's tight ends. I like Oregon's group here. There's a young guy in Kenyon Sadiq who's number 3, got a lot of potential. Patrick Herbert, solid number 2. Terrence Ferguson, first team All Pac-12 last year. I think this is a solid B-plus unit, like a well above average for the Ducks. I really like Oregon's tight ends. The reason I don't go higher is Terrence Ferguson an NFL guy? Yes. Is he a Brock Bowers type? No. And that's what the high end of a really good tight end room would look like. But I think Oregon's talent and depth is very good here.
I'm going with a C for the Buckeyes tight end room, and I almost went C-. The guy who I think is going to start is a transfer from Ohio University in Will Kazmarek. G. Scott Jr. been there for, I think, 3 or 4 years at least already. I don't believe in him to be a future starting tight end for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Jelani Thurman, who's going to be a second-year guy, very inexperienced at this level. Buckeye fans know what Ryan Day wants from his tight ends, want to use a lot of 12 personnel and things like that. I don't exactly know how much 12 personnel he's going to use during spring practice because I don't know how much trust he has with these guys currently right now to be able to use that grouping. Buckeyes have a tight end in Bennett Christian who is coming off a 1-year suspension for a failed drug test. So this room is very inexperienced. You're bringing in a guy, Will Kazmarek, who's from a G5 level, never had over 300 receiving yards as a tight end in his 2 years that he's played, at least got playing time. I probably should go C- the more I talk about him. I'm going C. It's spring ball. It's springtime. I'm trying to be nice to this room. That'll change down the road.
Let's shift to the offensive line. This is the highest individual grade that I give to any singular Oregon unit on either side of the ball, which is impressive because they lost the best center in all of college football last year in Jackson Powers Johnson, but they returned 4 other guys who were starters last year, and they bring in a 6th-year transfer from Indiana and Matthew Bedford. I think you've got 2 or 3 all-conference caliber offensive linemen. I give the Ducks offensive line an A. I think it is going to be another stellar unit for Oregon. What does Chip Kelly have to work with in the trenches?
You know, if we were in school and you came home with your report card, you said your mom was like, hey, what grade do you have? Well, Mom, I got A's and B's. We are great. That's Oregon right now, based off things you're seeing with their grading scale. It's not so hot for Ohio State's offensive line. I'm not going A right there either. I am going with a B-, and it's the depth is one thing. It's a question mark, but also you're replacing right guard, and I do believe right tackle because I don't believe Josh Schreier is the guy at right tackle for Ohio State or right guard. Seth McLaughlin, who was a transfer from Alabama, who's going to be the starting center. I think if healthy, and if his wrist does not give him issues in the upcoming season, he'll be a day 2 pick in the upcoming draft. I think he is that good. Your left side of the line is fine, but I'm going B-. The depth, I need to see more from the depth there before I raise this thing. And the right side of the offensive line, losing a future draft pick in Matt Jones, and then having to change the role right tackle spot because he was not good enough to start in the upcoming season, at least to me right now. I'm going B-, which is so odd to me, Spencer. Ohio State's normally known for having really good offensive line play, putting a lot of guys in the draft, multiple O-linemen in the draft every year. That hasn't been the case under Ryan Day. For instance, the Buckeyes only have 1 O-lineman that's trying to get drafted right now. That's unheard of, which goes into why my grade is that way for the Buckeyes O-line.
We've got to give out all of our defensive grades as well. At the halftime intermission, Oregon has got the lead. Can Ohio State surge back? We will most definitely find out. First, though, we are going to talk about our friends over at FanDuel. You can get buckets with America's #1 sportsbook, that, of course, be FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can also bet Oregon against Ohio State, which is Ducks -1.5. Buckeye fans out there listening or watching the show, maybe you want to take the points while you can. Maybe you feel like that line's going to move. Oregon fans, maybe you're supremely confident because the game is in Eugene. All that and so much more for college football can be bet, and you can bet everything you want in the NBA as well. Quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Let's flip over to defense here, Jay, before we get to the quarterbacks. I think the weakest individual unit, I've got special teams here on my grade as well, for Oregon is the defensive line. There are the most questions here. There are a lot of blue chip talented players, but if you're talking proven Power 5 starters that can play at an all-conference caliber level, there are one, maybe two. You saw Jamari Caldwell last year play at an all Big 12 conference level, but this is a bit better conference in the Big 10, particularly in the trenches. You got Jordan Birch, former 5-star and transfer from South Carolina. Those are your anchor pieces. You got young guys, a trio of true freshmen that played last year. I like this unit for the Ducks. I still have them graded as above average. I'm a tough grader, and I'm giving out these high grades because I feel really good about Oregon's roster, but this is a C+ unit for me, slightly above average, but there is a major unproven element here.
C+? Wow, it's the first C you've given out so far. Couple being a tough grader, maybe the spring weather that you're at, or just like, I don't know. I think spring, I live in Indiana, bro. The weather's not fun all the time this time of year. So that's why my grades and the weather outside is a little bit warmer, so I'm excited about it. I'm going A- with this unit, the defensive line. The starters, I do believe the Buckeyes have 4 future draft picks on the starting D-line next year. Tyleik Williams, JT Tuimoloau, and Jack Sawyer. First round, second round picks all there. Ty Hamilton. I believe it's Ty Hamilton, excuse me. Will get drafted as well. If he blows up, he could be a round 3, round 4 type of pick himself. Like those guys are that good. The question is the depth that's there. Hero Canoes played well back last year in a backup role. You got Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Caden Curry. There might be some mixing up as far as getting a more athletic defensive lineman and Mitchell Melton on the field in the upcoming season. So there's a lot of good things about it. The top is good. There's a lot of potential here with this unit. Very similar to the Buckeyes receivers. I gave them an A-. The defensive line is going to be A- as well. Could easily go A because the top of that unit is so good. But I'll go A- right now.
Yeah, I think I like that Buckeyes unit more than Oregon's, though. The Ducks have got, a bunch of talented guys. There's just a lot to prove, and it's an exciting unit. It's one of the biggest things I'm watching for with Oregon in spring football as practice starts on March 14th is, who amongst that 2023 recruiting class are going to pop, because all those defensive linemen, save for one, has stuck around, and they were all blue chip guys. So going to the linebackers position, I give Oregon a B- here. You got Jeffrey Bassa, who's your captain on defense, second team all Pac-12 last year. Justin Jacobs, the Iowa transfer, really good when he got on the field and was able to stay healthy last year. The depth at linebacker, like defensive line, lots of questions. So this is why I'm slightly lower there, but having Bassa is huge. This grade would probably be the lowest for Oregon on either side of the ball if Jeffrey Bassa decided to go to the NFL, but he comes back and he is the quarterback of that Oregon defense. Huge to have him there for the Ducks. What are Ohio State's linebackers looking like?
I am going to be so nice. I'm not going to be as nice as I just try to make it out to be. Same grade, B-. And it's only because the middle linebacker and Cody Simon started the year last year in a backup role. Still was a backup if everybody was healthy at the end of the season. But he was maybe the best linebacker on the team last year. The top 2 guys are now going to be in the NFL draft. The thought is, and the belief is, Sonny Styles is going to move from his safety spot to his linebacker spot. I have no idea what to expect from him when he's 5 yards, 4 yards from the line of scrimmage every single down. I expect him to be good. I'm not sure. CJ Hicks hasn't played consistently. What is he going to be? I think he'll be good. I don't know. Nobody else is on the unit at linebacker has played consistently at all. So the depth there is very similar to the O-line position in the depth. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So for me to say B- right now, it's very shocking to some. But a lot of it is we have no idea what's going to happen. With the receivers at Ohio State, when I say that there's a lot of guys that have not played, but also you got Cardinal Tate, who played a little bit. Brandon Ennis, who played a little bit as freshman. CJ Hicks hasn't been like that. Sonny Styles was more of a safety last year than a linebacker. Cody Simon, how will he be leading the Buckeyes defense? There's a lot of question marks. I believe they'll be good, but I don't know if I can say they will be good.
Lastly, on the defensive side of the ball, where Ohio State's got the advantage, Oregon had the advantage in our grading system here on the offensive side of things, this is probably the best unit for the Ducks. It's certainly the deepest unit. The defensive backs are really, really good. And when these two teams match up in October, right? October 12th in Eugene, Will Howard against this Oregon secondary is going to be one of the biggest aspects that defines the game. And I felt great about this Oregon secondary, and then they added Jabbar Muhammad, who is a plug-and-play starter, all-conference guy. I think this Oregon secondary has 4 guys that could wind up on first or second all-conference teams, are capable of getting to that sort of level. I'm not saying they'll dominate it, but guys who, if they play to their ceiling, they're going to be first or second team Big Ten. I think Jabbar Muhammad can do that. I think Jalil Florence, if healthy, coming off an injury from last year, he can do that. Kobe Savage was all Big 12 second team twice over at Kansas State. He's coming in to play safety. And then you have Brandon Johnson coming in at nickel, who's a 2-time honorable mention selection from Duke. So this is an A- unit for me. It's just a hair behind the offensive line for being, and the wide receivers. I'd probably have this as Oregon's 3rd strongest unit. And, with Oregon's wide receivers being so good, Ohio State's secondary is going to have to be very good as well. How do you feel about it, Jay?
I got an A, man. Only reason I'm not going A+ is because I don't give A+ in the spring. This unit, I am more excited about this group, corners and safeties at Ohio State, than any other unit position on the team. Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom. If Ransom's healthy, he could be a future first-round pick. No worse than early second round if he plays his best and stays healthy in the upcoming season. Denzel Burke, Davidson Igbinosun, Jordan Hancock. I think this could be the best, one of the best defensive back rooms in the entire country. Top 10, top 5, that's how good these guys are. But you have Jermaine Matthews Jr. and other guys that are youngsters that are really, really solid. And if it weren't for so many Buckeyes staying on campus, the freshmen and sophomores and juniors would be phenomenal as starters in the upcoming season. So I'm going A, not giving it A+ because of where we are right now in the offseason.
Okay, so with our grade, and just real quick, what grade would you give Ohio State special teams all around? Oh, boy. Uh-oh.
I don't give Fs. I'm not that bad of a grader, at least not right now. C? It's not the best. Kicker missed. I mean, I think if you miss 2 or 3 kicks as a kicker at Ohio State, you're not looked at as good. That's where we currently are. Punting hasn't been great. Return game is subpar. They just got rid of their special teams coach because that unit was bad. So that's why I started laughing. I'm like, oh, can I give it F? Well, I could. I'm not going to.
I mean, C- and D's are allowed.
Yeah, I would probably say C. They're probably on par with the tight ends. That caught me off guard. I'm not ready for it.
Hey, third side of the ball. Never underestimate the ability to be special on special teams. I've got Oregon at a B-. They bring in Atticus Sappington, the Oregon State kicker. Should be better than what Camden Lewis was a season ago, though going into last year, Lewis was looking strong, and then it just didn't go well. Oregon kickers are just, kind of cursed. But that's college kickers in general, frankly. I think Oregon's return game is very weak. I think Tez Johnson returning punts, good, but kick return game, got to be better. Talked about that on yesterday's episode of Locked On Ducks. And I think punting, they were excellent last year. Ross James was really, really good. So I think Oregon would have the edge there. But the reason that I am, after this conversation, even more strongly leaning towards Oregon having the better roster of the two is because of the one position that we haven't talked about yet. We talked about Nissan at the very beginning of the show, but we're doing so again because they deserve it, of course. And if you're the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further and you're always wondering what adventure could be around the next corner, Nissan is the place to go with a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. They've got Google built in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system so that Google Assistant, Google Maps, and the Google Play Store are all right at your fingertips. And the 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. They've also got the Nissan Pathfinder and the Nissan Armada, both of which seat up to 8 people. The Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. The Pathfinder's got 284 horsepower, which is about what I think Jay is able to bench press, but perhaps I'm being a little bit generous there. He's just, bigger and stronger than me. Good thing we're doing this virtually because I'd be in trouble otherwise. But take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. That's nissanusa.com. It's definitely in my best interest to keep this a verbal discussion and debate and whatnot. Any matching of physical traits and capabilities not going to end very well for me. The biggest position group and why I feel good about Oregon over Ohio State, I think the Buckeyes defensively have gotten better grades from you on that side of the ball, but I had higher praise for Oregon's offense, and I like Will Howard. I think he's really solid. I think he can be, I've talked about him on Locked On College Football before, that I think he could be in for his best season as a college quarterback. I think Dylan Gabriel's got a little bit more playmaking ability, little bit more it factor, and I like Gabriel as a B-plus quarterback in college football. I'd probably give Howard a B- or a B personally. And so I like what Oregon has at quarterback just a little bit more than what Ohio State has, though I think both are going to be set up for success this year.
No, I'm right there with you, man. When they got Will Howard in, I'm thinking, well, Buckeyes couldn't get Dylan Gabriel at the time because he was already off to Oregon. So I'm like, well, that's the guy who I wanted to get. And then Cam Ward was an option. Wait, no, he went to the NFL. No, he's back at Miami. So now all of a sudden it's Will Howard. And I was not really all that high. I was high because of what he did at Kansas State. Not because of what I'm used to at Ohio State and the quarterbacks and thinking he can be the next great quarterback for the Buckeyes. I don't really think that. But I also don't think or even believe Ryan Day believes he needs to have a great quarterback this year for the Buckeyes offense to be fluid and consistent, which it was not a year ago. I'm going, if it's Will Howard alone, it's B, which is probably what I should stick with. I'll go B- for the entire room. So I'm kind of splitting it up a little bit with my grades for the quarterbacks. Will Howard's a good quarterback. He'll probably have a shade under 3,000 passing yards, probably 25 to 28 passing touchdowns. Probably add in 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns because he won't need to do that much with the backfield we talked about earlier. My one question mark is nobody else behind him has really done anything. And if he gets hurt, I'm just throwing my hands up like nobody knows what's going to happen. So I don't hope for injuries. I don't want them to happen. I don't pray anybody gets hurt. That's not who I am. Will Howard's a good, solid quarterback. I don't know if that's what Ohio State needs in the fall to accomplish all of their goals. I think they'll need somebody better than that, but I don't think that's what he is or will ever be as a quarterback. So I'll go with B. Let's stick with the quarterback, QB1. I'll go B for that one. I don't want to put another B- on my paper. That was
I think
B- was there. Excuse me. B- was there the whole time. I just scratched it out and put B, so it looks a little bit better in my eyes.
So I was just looking through the lens of what Dylan Gabriel is, but you made a good point to bring up what you have behind your starting quarterback, because sometimes guys do get hurt, and as far as backup quarterbacks go, Oregon's got about as good of a situation as you could possibly ask for, because you have someone who is supremely talented, who needs a new situation to hit his potential in Dante Moore, and who also has starting experience. I mean, how many backup quarterbacks? There are 5. Ohio State has got a 5-star backup quarterback in Julian Sayin, who transferred from Alabama when the coaching change took place down there in Tuscaloosa. But Julian Sayin's never thrown a college football pass before. Dante Moore has. Now, it's the old Loki line from Avengers Infinity War. I have experience in that realm. Well, if you consider failure experience, I consider experience. That whole line exchange, which some of you will understand between Loki and Thanos, and others of you will wonder what in the world I'm talking about right now. But Jay seems to be on board with me here on that particular line. But anyway, I think that I got to bump Oregon's quarterback room up to an A- just because having Dante Moore there is a great situation. Not just for this season, but for 2025 as well. But, I think that's where everyone usually thinks about it is, well, Dante Moore will be great next year. Well, if Dylan Gabriel goes down this year, you're not throwing a true freshman into the fire.
Correct.
You've got someone who would be more experienced than what Oregon had last year with Ty Thompson as the backup quarterback, who, thankfully didn't have to come in. But, Dylan Gabriel is not a big guy. He will move a little bit. And if he gets dinged up, Oregon has someone who can come in and do a lot of the things that Gabriel is capable. I mean, Dylan Gabriel doesn't have as good of an arm as Dante Moore, but Dylan Gabriel's a better quarterback. That's the way that it'll shake out this year. But I want to close with this because I got this question from an Oregon fan out there, and for my Ducks fans listening or watching, YouTube comments or X, formerly known as Twitter, or you can join over at Subtext and get priority mailbag access and plenty of other perks. Mailbag is always open, especially here in the off season. One of you asked about what I couldn't make out what your name was on. It was like Iculus 4. I don't even know. I couldn't. It was impossible to decipher, frankly. The question was about whether Ohio State and Oregon could play 3 times in 2024. They play once in the regular season, October 12th at Autzen Stadium. They could play again in the Big Ten championship game, as Oregon and Washington did last year, and in a 12-team playoff, they could meet again. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's unlikely because Oregon and Washington playing twice last year, that's rare enough. Mm-hmm. But in the Big Ten without divisions, if you go back a couple of years, how many times would Ohio State and Michigan have played again the following week? And if Oregon and Ohio State live up to their full potential, and I think Oregon's got the better roster and Ohio State's is the next best in the Big Ten, if they play that way, I can see a meeting 3 times. I think 2 is the most likely number, either in the Big Ten championship game or in the college football playoff.
Yeah, 2 is more likely than 3. It's very, very odd. It would be interesting. I even go back. I don't know the last time this. Well, Alabama, Georgia. Didn't they play in the SEC championship game? But didn't play in the national championship game.
But they didn't play in the didn't play in the regular season. Yeah, they played twice. They have played. Georgia and Alabama have played twice before. Yes.
And then I know before that, LSU and Alabama played twice. Once in the regular season, once in the BCS national championship. So I'm sitting here like, could it realistically happen in the future where Oregon and Ohio State play 3 times? Yes. Is it likely? Probably not. I do see it more likely, though, that especially when you get to the 14-team playoff, which seems like it's a couple years away. I know, bro. I heard you on Locked On Sports today with that explanation, and I was like, hey, I'm with you. It's insane
14.
Now.
Oh,
it's
gosh.
It's never going to stop. It's not. I could easily see this thing getting up to 32.
Dude, the FCS football playoffs are 24. It's going to take about 2 seconds once a 14 or 16 team playoff gets approved for someone to go, you know what, the FCS ranks, they have a 24 team playoff. Like, okay, let's just let everybody in. Let's just make it a 68 team playoff. Let's make it like March Madness. Why don't we? It's just insanity.
I have my own thoughts about why that wouldn't work out. I know it's a whole nother show. We don't have enough time. But the 3 times would be fun. I'm sure, well, ESPN would love to get it. Fox would get twice. I'm sure Fox would get the first regular season game, and then Fox would get the Big Ten championship game, unless they're going to start rotating and stuff like that between the networks. But then ESPN, it will be chopping at the bit like, wait, we can get Ohio State back on our network in the postseason against Oregon? Whoa, we would love that. And no matter if it's a coming to the shoe or going to Autzen Stadium, whatever it is, ESPN would eat that up. And the promos, you would get sick of them because they'd be hitting you on the Instagram and the X and the TikTok and the television. They hit you everywhere because it's what they're good at. They know how to get what you want in front of you. And they know college football fans, they may hate Ohio State. They may hate Oregon. They watch them play. Trust me. I remember the game this past year. I think my first Oregon game I watched all year was Oregon, Colorado. I don't watch blowouts, bro. They go up by 40. I'm still watching. Because I wanted to see the
Great
drama.
day.
I was right there for. I'm sure you loved it.
That was a great day.
It'll be a great day when Ohio State beats the brakes off Oregon in the fall. I don't think it will happen, but if it does, trust me, you might get a crossover. I might be able to talk Spencer into doing a crossover after the show, where I just gloat the entire time. But no, guys, that's three times is probably not going to happen during the 12-team format. During the 14-team format, which is probably going to happen in 2026, and if they stick to 3 Big Ten teams automatically getting in, buddy, look, you could get Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State automatically in, and then you add in one of those other schools, ESPN's going to love it. Love every second of it.
Yeah.
Might I add,
You may.
you cannot tell me they're not involved in these stupid negotiations.
Of course they are.
They aren't right behind this saying, oh, you're going to do a 12-team? Well, before you do a 12-team, think about a 14-team. And I was like, why? Oh, because they want more money.
They started having conversations about a 14 or 16 team playoff. We haven't had a single season of the 12-team playoff yet. We don't know what it feels like. We don't know how it works. We don't know what we like and what we don't like. And they're already thinking, well, what if we just go to 14 or 16? And we'll wrap it there. Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Ducks. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time, whenever and wherever that may be. Till then, have a wonderful rest of your day. And to all my Duck fans out there, go Ducks.